Hello and welcome to the Rested podcast. My name's Mark Selby. I love the theatre of travel, discovering the stories of journeys and learning how people use their travel time. From my office window on this cold morning, I see clear blue sky, sunlight on the trees, and their branches gently swaying in the breeze. A squirrel scampers along a thick branch, and a kite, hunting its prey, circles overhead. It's an inspiring view. Looking through the window of a moving train, the view is always changing. A magnetic distraction from my screen or book, an opportunity to breathe deeply and savour the moment. A chance to think and relax. Imagine, if you can, that we're the train window. Outside is the familiar landscape we pass on regular trips up and down these tracks. Inside we see the familiar faces and quirks of commuters, their habitual use of this carriage and their favoured seats. These passengers are strangers to each other and will likely remain so, reluctant to start a conversation for fear of being viewed as odd. Being a train window, people look through rather than at us. We're transparent, invisible, like those passengers who enjoy the anonymity of being surrounded by strangers. They're comfortably alone. Others might simply be concentrating on their reading or daydreaming. Amongst them all are some very lonely people. But as the Roman Stoic Seneca said, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for a kindness. And we've got plenty of opportunities in our carriage. As a train window on a single trip, it's difficult to know who falls into which passenger group, comfortably anonymous, occupied, or lonely. But over time and many journeys, the groupings become apparent. Perhaps the views we offer outside might trigger some conversations. That sunrise on calm water, perhaps, or the attentive deer grazing in peace. We note the odd reluctance of people to speak with others. Apart from the cultural inhibitions and the myths of stranger danger, it seems odd, because the people who are easiest to mix with tend to be those who share things in common with us, especially those boarding trains at the same or a nearby stop. They're more likely to have some of those commonalities, familiarity with a place and community, or potentially common contacts and friends. Given that we tend to like people who are like us, it helps explain why so many relationships begin on trains and platforms. Chance encounters, patiently waiting to happen. Saying good morning to someone on the platform might be more effective than a dating app. As the ever-present window, we know that the character of places influences the character of journeys. Consider the two direct train routes from Woking in Surrey to Portsmouth on the English south coast. One goes via Winchester, the other, faster line, goes via Petersfield. Talking with the train crews who work on both routes, their observations on the respective passengers are interesting. They seem to be agreed that passengers on the slower line are friendlier and more pleasant to carry and serve. Rather than a function of time, it seems the difference is the character of the communities along each line. Now, picturesque towns and villages often feel like places I enjoy visiting but wouldn't want to live in. I feel a bad fit for these communities, whose character manifests itself in so many ways. Do the people seem happy and sociable, or glum and resigned? What are the snippets of overheard conversations? The local architecture might be splendid, but the people are the soul of the place. My discomfort with a place might be due to that specific moment in time. Places and people change. Residents move with time. Younger adults might move to cities for their education or work, whilst those with young families often move to the suburbs or rural areas, if they can, for more space. Their migrations change the character of places, just as our own personalities and values can change with time. Travelling regularly on our train are the residents of many communities. They'll be familiar with their local places, walks, shops, bars, gyms and more. Our passengers probably have some mutual contacts, but without speaking to each other, they'll never know. Does it matter? Once again, they might never know. Rebecca has lived in her London flat for 5 years and commutes to work from the nearby station. She often sees a woman who lives at the end of her road, catching the same train in the morning. They'd never spoken, but one morning the train was cancelled. A replacement bus service was operating, and the station's popular drinks kiosk was closed. It was commenting on the kiosk that triggered the first contact. The chat continued. Where were they going? How long had they lived on the road? And what work they did? It transpired the two of them worked in media, though for different companies in different parts of London. Coincidentally, their respective employers had recently started a joint promotion. It was surprising how many of their colleagues were known by both. One colleague of the neighbour was a good friend of Rebecca's. The neighbour praised this colleague for giving her excellent recommendations for a recent trip to Portugal. Rebecca laughed. She'd been to Porto with that colleague and other friends a few months earlier, which resulted in the recommendations. It just took a closed kiosk to make contact and discover connections. Chance encounters waiting to happen. Of course, some people prefer to think of themselves as being different to the people around them. I'm reminded of that scene in Monty Python's Life of Brian. Brian is telling the crowd they don't need to follow him. He says, "You've got to think for yourselves. You're all individuals." The crowd reply, "Yes, we're all individuals." Brian says, "You're all different." The crowd reply, "Yes, we are all different." Then one voice rings out, "I'm not." We might like to consider ourselves unique and different. External appearance is one thing, but what about inside? How different are we? Psychologists at the University of Bath looked at the beliefs and attitudes of 140,000 people from 60 countries. They analysed how similar or different groups were, and then compared groups of people split by nationality, religion, age, gender, income, and education level. The attitudes and values of the people studied on issues ranging from crime and security to moral beliefs were remarkably aligned. On average, 95% of responses given by women were mirrored by men, and 80% of responses of individuals from one nation were mirrored by those from another. A wonderful foundation of commonalities to build upon. And there's more. At the Eindhoven University of Technology, researchers analysed 3 years of anonymous tracking data from passengers leaving trains on one platform. By observing how people choose between two routes around a kiosk, they found a clear pattern. Many passengers copied the path taken by the person immediately ahead of them, rather than choosing independently. This behaviour wasn't limited to people travelling together. Passengers demonstrated a strong stranger-following effect, where individuals still treated the person in front as an informal leader. Once someone chose a particular route, others were more likely to follow, creating small cascades of people making the same decision. The findings suggest that crowd movement is shaped less by rational choice and more by imitation. The positive potential for some of these commonalities and behaviours could be far-reaching. Placing litter in a provided bin will likely be imitated by others. Helping people with heavy luggage, giving way to others, or just smiling will likely cause others to follow your lead. Of course, that imitation isn't always ideal. In the days before sat-navs, driving my car in an unfamiliar place sometimes caused unnecessary mistakes. If the route was blocked and other drivers were turning off to take alternative, unfamiliar routes, I'd convince myself they knew the area well and were heading in a similar direction to me. Others came to the same conclusion. Off a group of us would drive, in convoy, eventually ending at the driveway of someone's house, or in a factory car park. Certainly not where we wanted to be. If only I'd asked them where they were going. We're surrounded by people like us. If they're on the other side of the window, open it and smile. If they're sitting or standing beside us, tease out those stories that could surprise and delight. Take the first step, and others will follow. Enjoy the conversations, the views, and your travels. Thanks for listening to the Rested Podcast. Please subscribe for details of new episodes and tell your friends. I look forward to reading and sharing your travel stories. Please email restedpodcast@gmail.com. And my thanks to everyone that has contributed to Rested so far. Enjoy your travel time.